Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all. Welcome to our first observance of World Day of the Boy Child, a very special forum. Yes, we, Voice of Men 360, are excited to host our first observance, World Day of the Boy Child, this for the first time in Canada. We'd like to welcome our host, speakers, and all of you wherever you may be and watching from in the world. This year, 2021, it will be observed in more than 25 countries around the world. My name is Kristen Banfield, and I'm your co-host for today's special event. I'm one of the community's outreach coordinators at Voice of Men 360. Before I introduce our host for today's special forum, I would like to give you a brief introduction about Voice of Men 360, International Men's Day. Voice of Men 360 is a nonprofit organization founded in 2020 and is based in Toronto, Canada. A Voice of Men 360 organization was born out of seeing the tremendous need of boys and men in society. Voice of Men 360 stepped up to support and help them in many areas of their lives. We are part of International Men's Day, which is a global organization. IMD is based on 6 pillars, which has to do with the overall well-being of boys and men. It has been around for over 21 years and celebrated in nearly 90 countries. These countries join together to do various activities on a regular basis. And now I'd like to introduce you to our host for today's very special event. Oliver D. Levy is the founder of Mindful Parenting Toolkit. His mission is to make a difference in society, to equip over 10 million parents with actionable tools in order to guide their children to greater achievements without getting frustrated. He is a recovered yeller. He has 3 children, 27-year-old king, 12-year-old prince, and 9-year-old princess. He has been there in same shoes as parents who struggle with temper tantrums, kids not listening, whining, sibling battles, and lots more parenting challenges. This is the catalyst for developing Mindful Parenting Toolkit. It was his own realization that he had turned into the yeller that he swore he would never be. He became determined to find a better way, a healthier, happier means of raising great kids without losing control. He immersed himself in the study of principles of Adlerian psychology and positive discipline. What he learned was life-changing, family-changing, and flat-out powerful. What he knew, however, from this experience working in the community was that parents needed an easy to understand process and actionable steps so they can feel composed and confident, guiding their children to greater achievements. This is where he knew he could make a difference in the world. So please, everyone, Oliver D. Levy, welcome to our first observance. Thank you for accepting our request to host this special forum. Oliver, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, everyone. I was getting goosebumps while you were saying all those words because I never thought in a million years that those words would be coming from me. So I thank you very much. Thank you, Voice of Men 360, for this opportunity for hosting today's special event, guiding boys to impact our world effectively. So I also want to thank the speakers for joining us today. I'm actually excited and pumped for the discussions. It's kind of almost the kind of first time really talking about topics that we're about to talk about. So I am when it comes to, guiding boys, to, impacting the world into, lively, live a world of integrity, men, right? So I'm so pumped to dive into our discussion. However, before we get there, I should, really talk about our disclaimer when it comes to the Voice of Men 360 and this panel discussion. So I want us to be advised that content brought forward for any event facilitated by Voice of Men 360 is always brought forward in good faith. However, may bring forth dialogue and opinions that are not representative of this organization. The fact is and information are believed to be accurate at all times they are offered. All facilitators, guest speakers, panel, forum members, and others may participate and responsible for using their good judgment in taking any action that may relate to the discussion that we're about to get into. The content brought forward may include discussion for somewhere they may be emotionally at risk. It's important to know that this organization is engaged in discussion forum only to offer and inspire awareness and connection, and is not providing therapeutic advice. If you need crisis intervention or therapy, you need to engage in service of mental health professionals. If you have any question about this disclaimer or the panel discussion, you may freely contact the Voice of Men 360 organization through a website and contact information posted. That you can find that probably in the chat as we go along. Voice of Men 360 takes privacy concern very seriously. With this now said, going forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in this event in any capacity, we welcome you. Should you decide that this event is not for you at this time, we respect the choice and we welcome you to join us again later. So on that note, I'll pause a little bit just in case we have any question. I just want to make that very clear. And something that I also want to talk about is the 10 core principles of the World Day of Boy Child, and just the organization itself. Number one, educating and mentoring. Number two, honoring boys who are talented and achievers. Number three, rescuing boys from poverty and war. 4, eradicating literacy and underachievements. 5, addressing discrimination against boys. 6, promoting positive minds and healthy boys. 7, offering freedom and safety. 8, championing equality and equity. 9, maintaining good values and moral. 10, empowering boys. So I'm gonna, once in a while, I'm gonna go to Sivam. If there's anything in the chat, you can feel free to kind of let me know, what's happening in the chat. At this point, Sivam, would you be able to play that video, or you want me to talk about Jerome before we get into all the discussion?
Jerome is here.
Oh, Jerome is here. Okay, great. So are you going to play that video, or you want me to introduce Jerome?
Please introduce.
Okay. So Jerome, I just want to talk about Jerome. He is a pioneer, and he can speak for himself when he get a chance. But for the last 14 years, he has been lecturing at University of West Indies in Trinidad and in Caribbean. And since 1999, he has been promoting International Men's Day, which is now observed in nearly 90 countries. Wow. Also initiated the observance of World Day of the Boy Child on May 16th. That's what we're about to get into. And he's produced 2 documentaries on masculinity and the making of International Men's Day and dissecting masculinity, and published a few books, including Achieving Peace, Equity, and Healthy Environment. So I would love to introduce the one and only Jerome Tikulusing. If I pronounce that right, I'm sorry. So if you want to say a few words, thank you very much.
Hello, Jerome. Hello, Jerome. Can you hear us?
I think he's frozen for a second.
Yeah.
You might want to type in the chat, let him know that he's frozen. Sometimes speakers may not know.
I think he joined through phone, so I'm not sure. So maybe you can start, and then he can join in a bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So as we're waiting for, okay, I thought it was joining. Jerome to join. I just want to introduce our speakers. I'm not going to go through too much in depth with the speakers. They can kind of talk about themselves based on the question I'm going to be asking. I think Jerome is back. There you go. Jerome is back.
Jerome, can you hear? Jerome, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm hearing fine, Sivam. I'm hearing fine.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, fine. I'm hearing loud and clear. You hearing me? Right.
Yes, we can hear you very
I
low.
just want to thank.
I think he has some difficulties though.
Yeah.
All right. Oliver, you want to take it away?
Sure. So we have some amazing speakers today. That's going to give us some insights and friendly conversation today. So first, I want to talk about Willy Price. He's a motivational speaker and self-published author of more than 16 publications ranging from Black history to self-awareness to real estate and property management. And he has a BA in mental health from the University at Buffalo. He became a member of National Speaker Association, NSA, in January 2017. Willy Price is a motivational speaker and creator of several youth and adult workshops from The Power of You to Shining Stars and No Dream is Possible and What's Your Next Move? Programs like that. So, and the programs like Think and Grow Wealth program also emphasize an importance of building self-esteem and financial literacy as participants create their roadmap towards a successful life. So thank you for joining us, Willy. Just allow me to kind of introduce everyone, and then we can go into fun discussion later on. I also want to pronounce or introduce Vinita Puri. And guys, if I'm kind of not pronouncing your name right, forgive me. You can correct me throughout our discussion. That is fine. Vinita Puri is highly experienced social worker, mediator, educator, coach, and consultant. She possesses a specialized honor BA in sociology from York University, a master's degree in social work for the last 20 years. Vinita has worked with a range of populations across many workplace settings. She has successfully facilitated, trained, and coached individuals and groups in alternative dispute resolution, crisis intervention, stress management, mental health first aid, applied suicide intervention skills training, workplace health, and counseling service. Vinita is truly passionate about helping individuals, I can see that, families and community groups and society at large. Facilitated, trained, and coach individuals. As a passionate social justice advocate, she has been recognized as an international ambassador for Pink Thursday, which is a global social justice coalition that seeks to raise awareness of the harmful impact of violence in all forms. So thank you, Vinita, for joining us. Next is Rich Mullins, a father of a teen boy and a tween girl. Rich talks about, I'm a coach and a mentor for young people as a well leader in the global business and nonprofit sector. And he said that he believes it's important for young boys to have positive role models to support and guide them through the challenges they face transitioning from boyhood to manhood, kind of like that. As a father who did not have the presence of support of a male role model for most of my early years and teenager years, I am committed to being a role model and a mentor for young people so they can understand their true potential and grow into leaders they always born to be. Well-being, especially mental, emotional, and social, is so crucial for young boys and it lays a foundation for their later years and can set them up for success and live their best life. Thank you very much, Rich, for joining us. And Patricia Stokes is a vice president at donhouse.ca in 2015 to now. Patricia has dedicated over 20 years to the front lines advocating for children, youth, and their families from the high-risk community she was born and raised in. Patricia has taken her leadership internationally and is a mission ambassador for OHPA and a co-founder of Pat and Pat Partnering Against Trafficking. Patricia holding a pre-BA in behavioral psychologist, a law clerk diploma, and receive an honors diploma in travel and tourism. Patricia Lynn Stokes was the Woman on Fire Award recipient March 8, 2020 in Toronto, Ontario. Thank you, Patricia, and thank you everyone for joining us. Sivam, we have anything in the chat that you want me to kind of go through before we jump in our discussion?
You can start.
So this is going to be a little bit different, not necessarily a panelist, but we're just going to in a discussion, and you're going to talk about what we're here to talk about, and from your perspective. So each speaker, I'm going to allocate at least 2 minutes for each speaker to speak on the question. But before we get into all that, I want us to introduce ourselves in a fun way. Say your name, your slogan or your mantra or words you live by, and probably 1 or 2 sentences, because we all have stories. Probably 1 or 2 sentences you just can talk about, your hobby, and also, your why you do what you do. So let's start with, Willy Price.
I'm ready. Okay, there. You can hear me now. All right. My name is Willy A. Price. I go by Willy A. Price Speaks. I'm from Buffalo, New York. And my motto is you can do anything that you set your mind to. And I have some hobbies. I run track, I coach track, and I enjoy writing and learning. I love to read and learn. So I like to write about the things I read and learn about. And my expertise, well, I'm actually going to go into why, what is my why? My why for doing the things that I do is January 10th, 2012, I had a fall 25 feet from the top of a roof. And I asked God if he saved me and allowed me to walk, because they told me I would never walk again. If I was able to walk again, I would do everything I could to help people to live a better life. And I would show them how to do the things I do so that would help them to live a better life. That's me in a nutshell.
Wow, love it, love it. That's why I open with that, because we all have unique stories. Next, I want to talk, if you can open up your mic, Vinita.
Hi, everyone. It's such an honor to be here. I'm so grateful to Voice of Men 360 for giving me this opportunity. So for myself, as you know, I'm a social worker and a passionate social justice advocate. I don't think it happened by mistake that I became a social worker. When I grew up in the 1970s, there was a lot of racism that I faced, and there was a lot of bullying that I went through. I also was born with a congenital birth defect known as aniridia. And for that reason, I had difficulty seeing. But fortunately, with the support of my family and with the support of the CNIB, which is the Canadian National Institute of the Blind, I was able to get accessible supports and resources so I could actually get through school. And I'm really proud to say that I'm now a PhD student in psychology. You know, nothing can stop you. I totally agree with Willy that if you set your mind to something, you can do anything, but you need the support in life and you need people to really believe in you. And since that point, I have so much compassion in my heart for anyone who is judged, anyone who believes that somebody can't do something. If we listen to those voices, we oppress ourselves. It becomes internalized. And so throughout the years, it's really been my passion to kind of mentor and coach people. And one of my first jobs was working as a youth worker and working with the John Howard Society of Toronto. And John Howard Society is a nonprofit organization that works with at-risk men and people in conflict with the law. and sort of helping to work with them, not kind of punitively disciplining them, but teaching them skills, coaching them, and making them know that if somebody believes in them, they can change. I do believe people can change, but they need the support. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Very well said. Ooh, I was getting goosebumps while you're talking. So thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
one more thing I'd like to add. One more surprise that happened in my life is last week I was recognized. I got crowned as Miss Canada World Universal Elite 2020-2021. So that is a huge accomplishment for me. I never thought of myself as a beauty queen, but I'm using this as a platform to really uplift and inspire people all over.
Oh, for sure. Thank you. Appreciate that. Up next is Rich Mullins.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm incredibly honored and grateful to be part of this great group of speakers, and really on such an important day where we recognize young boys in particular. You know, they really are our future fathers, leaders, educators, and, you know, young people generally. They have so much potential in the world today. And certainly as a young boy myself, not having that father figure for most of my young life, not having that role model, that somebody who comes alongside, puts their arm around you and says, anything's possible. You know, as Willy said, if you put your mind to it, anything's possible. And before my late stepfather passed away, those were some of his key words that he shared with me. And they've been echoed through some of the mentors that I look up to in my life, you know, people like Tony Robbins, who says, where focus goes, energy flows. There's a proverb in the Bible even that says, as a man thinketh, so is he. And I believe a lot of our outlook in life and a lot of our successes are very much determined by our thoughts. You know, what we think ultimately is what we become. And in today's world, there are a lot of negative thoughts happening, particularly in young people, young boys who are just trying to figure out life, trying to figure out their path, their why, their reason for being, and their way. Which way are they going to go? And so for me, being a global business leader, I've kind of stepped back from that after 20 years to really focus on my passion and my core purpose, which is helping young people. And recently established a not-for-profit which serves the poor in Zimbabwe. And even more recently this year, established a group with some incredible individuals. And our mission is really to inspire and empower 1 million youth by 2030 to achieve a goal linked to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And we really believe that that's possible by being mentors and supporting them on that journey and just lifting them up and helping them see what's possible. So super grateful to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you. Wow, this is the reason why I was so pumped, because of you know all the great speakers. And so last but not least, Patricia, Lynn.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on this forum, your inaugural launch, the first Observance Voice of Men 360. So my name is Patricia Lynn Stokes. My mantra is, well, this has been my mantra for the last few weeks, right? My mantras change, but this last little while, it has been, we may disagree about a lot of things, right? But we can still be kind to each other. And I think in that we often maybe don't know what we don't know, or we don't understand enough. So we have misunderstandings, but to come back in full swing and just find the commonalities amongst each other. And I think that is that we want, you know, our world to thrive, our boys, our women, our children, all to thrive in our communities and world. So if we come back to that, then we can't fail, right? My hobbies are, I love everything crafty. I have, fun fact, 3 dogs, 2 cats, 21 fish, and I have a ball python snake. So I'm very much about animals and things. My why is, I come from hard beginnings, right? Hard, but humble beginnings, in that there wasn't always, there was struggles, right? And my mom had a home for special care home through the Ongwanata Hospital. And my dad had a background of an Indigenous culture. And my mom had, you know, white culture, and I got the combination of the both of them. So I got to learn how to hunt, to fish, to be immersed in the earth and the way of my dad's teachings, and also the religious side of going to church every Sunday, and the Christian side with my mom. And my mom was a huge advocate for the rights of families and children, so that got to be passed on to me. And I became passionate about, you know, helping support human trafficking, and that we're ending human trafficking, whether that be sex trafficking, labor trafficking, and things. And that's my why. My why is to just make a bigger difference. And I learned early on at when I started my first career in family and community support work. I worked 7 years as a frontline worker. But what I realized was I could only go so far in the changes that I could make in the legislation and in big policies where I was at. So I needed to advance my education, which is why I'm passionate about law and human rights, legal research and stuff, and about making changes and advocating for families and those around our communities. I want to say thank you for having me.
Cool, thank you. And the reason why your mantra changed, because guess what? You were growing. So your mantra is going to change, your view is going to change, because you are growing in a very fast-paced, changing world. So thank you guys for being here. So let's jump right into our first discussion. So we all have the similar common goal. And I'm very passionate about our future generation in terms of equipping them with, you know, positive tools to live their dreams that they desire. So my mission is to impact 10 million parents with simple tools to do just that. So my first question is, and we're going to go in the same order, is that why do you accept to be here celebrating and partaking in this special event, guiding boy child, and to impact the world? So I want you to kind of base it on your expertise, your experience, your insight. What can you share regarding our young boys having challenges transitioning from boyhood to a successful young man to impact society, right? What would you say? Let's start with Willy Price first. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? All right.
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes.
Okay. I accepted this this opportunity because, as you mentioned in my bio, I do a program called From Boys to Men. And what From Boys to Men is, we work with young men, showing them physical, personal, financial development. What I found is, growing up as a young kid, I didn't have a male mentor. I grew up, I was a single parent home. I had 3 sisters and a mother, and I was considered the man of the house, but I wasn't a man. I didn't know how to be a man. And later, my mother ended up marrying a man, bringing him into the house, and he took over the role of the man. But I wasn't willing to accept that. But what he found is that I liked working. I liked to go out and make money. I was always trying to find ways to make money. So one day he made me get in the car with him, and he drove from one house to the next house, to the next house, to the next house. And each house he would go in and come out, he would count this stack of money and put it on the seat between us. Got my attention. And I finally said to him, "Where are you getting this money from?" He said, "These houses that I'm coming out of, I buy them at auctions and people pay me to live in them." And I said, "They give you all that money?" He said, "Yes." And I said, that day he became my best friend, because he had something I wanted. And what I found is that through what I do with young men in the community, boys are always looking for ways to help out at home, to be a breadwinner, to help out with their parents and so forth. So what I do with my Boys to Men program is, our emphasis is teaching them how to save money, how to start their own business, introduction to real estate, and then franchises we just added in this year, teaching them how to start their own franchises or to get into franchises, and introduction to the stock market. And when you show a young man, instead of buying a pair of Nikes, how to own Nike stock and how you can use that money to do things and help your family out and buy your own school clothes and things like that, you could see the motivation in them to want to learn, to want to do better, to want to, one of the problems with young men we find is, by grade 4, they tend to fall behind girls, because girls develop faster than boys. They tend to fall behind in reading and writing. So as a result of that, they become self-conscious as to the fact that they're not good readers or they're not very good writers. But what we started doing was we started using what is called right brain learning with them. And I'm going to talk about that a little later as well. But with right brain learning, what we do is we use audio, visual, and actual touching and doing things with your hands. And what you'll find is that boys work better with their hands. If they hear something, they can repeat it. And if they see something, they can do it. So what we started doing was using that in the schools with the young men who were having these problems with reading and writing, and showing how being able to do a verbal presentation, because we do public speaking with them. So teaching them how to do these things allowed them to be able to catch up in the classroom, because they could listen to a book on audiobook and then give a verbal or oral report on that book and show that they know the information, versus having to read the book, which they have difficulty reading, and write the paper out, which they have problems writing. And so that's how that's why I'm here, is because I want to share that right brain learning information with the world. So that way, a lot of times we think our boys are slow, or we have ADHD and all these different illnesses. They try to give them mental illnesses, but what it is that they're just having problems because of their development. And so that's why I'm here.
Got it. Thank you. Wow, amazing. Would you mind sharing, Vinita?
Yeah, thank you, Willie. That's very interesting. I follow from the same suit. So what I believe is that, socially speaking, men and boys, they have a lot of pressure on them since they're young. So it starts with the family system, of course. And if they have, role models, I think we see in the media, we always see men being portrayed as these aggressive macho types, right? So in order for men to get respect, or for them to have power, any type of power, it is to show this image of aggression. And I think this is so harmful, because the only acceptable emotion for a man to express is anger and violence. And that is just not natural. I mean, men feel sad too. Men hurt as well. Men need support too. And I think a lot of ladies, they're fortunate that it's more socially acceptable for women to reach out for help, to cry on each other's shoulders, to, give each other hugs and kisses and that kind of thing. But men just don't have that kind of sisterhood that women have. And, a lot of it is competition. So if you look at sports, you look at video games, you look at TVs and movies, increasingly you're seeing a lot more violence that's going on in those films. And the physique of the men, I'm actually seeing a growing number of my clients with men who have eating disorders. So men who are, trying to get so muscular and so, like the perfect body image, that they have very low self-esteem, but exterior wise, to show that, nothing hurts them and they don't get sad and, nothing affects them, that kind of macho exterior, inside they're suffering. And I've seen that. And unfortunately, men are more likely than women to commit suicide. And this is what I'm seeing in a lot of the work that I do, unfortunately. A lot more men, a lot of young boys are getting into drugs and alcohol at an early age. A lot of them are getting into criminal activity. A lot of them, especially, I have to say, historically speaking, the marginalized and oppressed communities that we know, a lot of them are overrepresented in the criminal justice system. So Aboriginal people, Black individuals, there's a lot more systemic racism and that kind of exterior pressure, because if you've been oppressed for so long, the only way of showing power sometimes is through violence and aggression. And these are really harmful role models that we see on television. So I think a part of what I've gone into lately is with Pink Thursday. So Pink Thursday, as you were saying, it is a social global campaign that started in Vancouver, Canada. And what we're trying to do is raise awareness of all forms of bullying, right? So we know that bullies oftentimes become perpetrators. and then perpetrators become victims. So like it goes back and forth. So who's the victim and who's the perpetrator? So violence breeds more violence, and that is the truth. So, you know, what I try to do is when I work with youth or when I work with, you know, men and women, and the reason why I wanted to be a part of this forum is because for any type of systemic change to happen, in order for there to be gender equality, we need to work with men and women. We can't just ignore the voice of men and keep them voiceless and shut them out. As women, if we want to have parity with men, men need to have parity as well. Like we equality means equality. It's not just for a certain group of people, it's for everybody. And so with Pink Thursday, what we're trying to do is we're trying to raise awareness of the harmful effects of all forms of violence, be that emotional, psychological, internalized oppression, you name it. So it's not just physical, but we're talking about all levels of aggression and microaggression that people perpetrate on each other. And we're doing training and coaching, and we're doing a lot of social awareness kind of documentaries and things like that. We're trying to be innovative, and especially during COVID, we've been really trying to branch out. So that's sort of what I feel my purpose is now. Like I feel my whole life, it has been for that purpose. I want to be the change I want to see in the world. I really do. And that is what Mahatma Gandhi preached. And that is what Martin Luther King preached and Nelson Mandela. That is really what binds us together, is to accept each other for our differences, but know that we're equal in value.
Wow, well said. And you're so right in terms of men was raised to not to show the emotional side and society. And if we always go by society, we always jeopardize our well-being. So yes, thank you very much, Vinita. And also, that's also my mantra: be the change you want to see in the world. I preach that all the time for the last 9 years. So well said. Thank you. Rich Mullins, if you want to speak on this.
Willy and Vinita, that's so beautiful what you both shared. And I love how we can all come in and share our perspectives and our viewpoints to really help these young people level up for their own success in life. And if I can dig a bit more into my own story and share why I accepted this and why I do what I do, is I remember being a 4-year-old kid. That was many years ago. And my father at the time was one of the fastest racing drivers in Africa. And he actually got to be a stuntman on a movie with Denzel Washington called Cry Freedom at the time. And so for me as a young kid growing up in that space, he was my hero. You know, and what young boy wouldn't want a hero like that, who's a fast racing driver? He was then in the army, so he came across as a protector to me. And, I looked up to him. Shortly after, in my young life, he actually left, and he wasn't really a part of my life for many, many years. Another man, my stepdad, came in for a short period before he passed away. And so in my teens, I didn't really have that male role model. I did connect with my biological father over the years and got to meet him a few times. And more recently, got to introduce him to his grandson. And, he took us to a place when we went to visit him. And he actually took us to a graveyard. And he said to me, "This is where I used to sleep at night." And he said, "The reason I used to sleep here is because for me, it was the safest place. The only people that would bother me were the foxes." And that was heartbreaking for me as a son. And really just hearing his story, how he went from being my hero to being a victim of his own making, of his world just sort of crumbling in and putting him in a place where, he struggled with alcohol and, his social well-being and his emotional well-being led him to a very poor and lonely death. He passed away last year. And so for me, what really inspires me, and hopefully his message and story can really inspire others, is, how do we show up in the world? Do we show up as a hero to others? Do we show up as a victim? Or do we show up as a villain? And we all have a choice. We can show up as a hero, a victim, or a villain. And ultimately, we're all role models. And for me, I want to leave a lasting legacy, because I believe it's more about how we show up in the world than what we created or what we did. Because people remember more about how you made them feel than actually what you did for them. And so when I engage with people, I want to leave them with that positive emotional deposit. And that's why one of the reasons why we created Anua Heroes is because it is very much, we recognize that the world needs even more heroes. It needs your hero. And so our mission with Anua Heroes is to work with young people and help them to discover their inner hero, to help them find their why, if it's a little why or a big why, and then find their way. When they discover their superpowers within, whatever those superpowers are, we can be there as mentors and that they can lean on and really support them in that journey as they live and love their best life. So for me, this is a fantastic platform and opportunity, any chance I get to really share and lift young people up and say they have a voice too in the world. And it's up to us as role models, as mentors, to really give them that voice. And a story in terms of how that's come full circle. I was just listening to my 16-year-old son the other day, who I'm also not just a father to, but a mentor. I'm helping him with his business. He's only 16 and he's created a global business with partners in America and Australia. It's incredible. Sometimes I don't think we give young people enough credit for actually what they're capable of. But when we give them that little support and maybe even a little push every now and then, do you remember riding a bike? You had to push the kid to kind of get him going down the hill and figuring out that they could do it. They could balance. And so my young boy is now mentoring other kids in his business. And one of the things he said the other day, he was talking about dopamine. He was saying that he had realized that the things that were giving him a dopamine hit were actually holding him back. Things like spending loads of time on his Xbox, spending time on his phone on YouTube. And they actually prevented him from achieving his bigger goals. When he got clarity on his goals, which was his business and something that he wanted to create for the world to see, to share his skills in his life. And he was sharing this with a young lad, a 13-year-old lad who's one of his business partners. And I got to hear this secondhand by this young boy's parents who were relaying the story of him coaching. And that really touched my heart because it showed me that as mentors, as role models, these young people do pick it up. They do see what we have to share and how we can inspire and empower them. They may not tell us in the moment. And as parents, sometimes we're pulling our hair out going, did you really get what I was teaching you? Did you get what I had to share for you? But wow, how special is it to be able to receive that feedback and to see the impact that we can have in these young people as they really level up and as they step up to be the leaders and the heroes that they were born to be. So that's why I'm here. That's my why. Thank you.
Wow, love it. Thank you. I love what you say. You find your why and then you find your way. And when you feel good about yourself, you can do amazing things. And I love that dopamine hit because a lot of us getting no dopamine from the wrong source that are holding us back. So thank you very much. And I want to talk to Patricia, Lynn, and how you want to address this question. It's your turn.
Hello. I want to start by saying I was hesitant, right? Like most of us have fears, right? So face everything and rise, right? And false experiences appearing real, right? So that's what fear is. And for me, I have a desire statement, right? And goals. I want to say boys to men in Willy, when he talked about his boys to men program and just the vision of being able to show young boys that there's a possibility of, getting to that, what is it that we want, and the understanding of finances and goals and how to create wealth and stuff for our next generations and ourselves. And for me, my desire statement was to get out of my comfort zone. I was going to do my desire statement. I'm going to reach my desire statement by doing more Facebook Lives, by accepting interviews that I may have, originally said no to because of my own nervousness, right? And I think, I know with this panel, in that there is so many amazing panelists on here, that I would be doing a disservice to our world and to our boys and to my mission and to my overall desire statement if I didn't say yes to this opportunity. And that now I get to leave this platform. People know a little bit more about my mission and who I'm about because they can, go to the websites that have been posted. And the other thing is that I can connect now with more like-minded people that are on the same mission. So when I get a resource or a referral from a boy or a man or, a family, I can say, wow, I know, Vinita is working in this and I want to connect you, or I can connect you with Rich. He's been there, right? He's been through those challenges. Or if it's money and finances with Willy Price Speaks, right? So I think for me, it's the opportunity to do more, to give more, and to become better connected and learn from other people on this panel as well as the viewers. Thank you.
Thank you. And by you saying that, and I know Vinita kind of talked about it too, but I want to switch the conversation a little bit in terms of, and I want to start with you, Patricia, on this one. And I want you to educate us a little bit when it comes to culture and an important role when it comes to a young boys thriving instead of surviving in our culture as marginalized people and indigenous people. I want you to talk a little bit about that, and also Jordan River Anderson, and what is Canada's Jordan River's principles. So I know it could be a two-part question, but I want you to kind of discuss the role that, how important it is as culture, plus talk to us a little bit about Jordan River Anderson.
Yeah, I think, with culture, right, and indigenous in particular, and I've got, elders that I seek advice from, because I'm definitely not an expert in all that is for indigenous. But what I can say when it comes to Jordan and the Jordan principle is this was a young boy, an indigenous boy, Cree Nation, Winnipeg. And he got sick. He got really sick. He was born sick. And I want to say that the hospital's 800 kilometers from the reserve that he was going to be born on. So he needed to be transported to Winnipeg Hospital. He had all of these challenges. And in Canada's government at the time, what had happened was he got to a point in his therapy and in his healing, though he would never be perfect, and he had so many challenges, medical challenges, and they wanted to home him in a foster family that was close to the hospital so that he could experience a home life. But when it came down to meetings around the table, the federal and provincial government didn't agree with the payment, because the home that he was approved to be in needed alterations. And ultimately, that resulted in Jordan not getting out of the hospital. So he later went into a coma. He unfortunately passed from his illness, and he lived his whole life in hospital. But what it did was it sparked a human rights case. So the Human Rights Tribunal took the case. They put a motion into the Canadian government to bring the same care to Indigenous children as is brought to our everyday children off reserve. Way back then, I want to say, if it was the provincial government deciding, then his care would have been okay. But because he was Indigenous falling underneath the federal government, that didn't happen. So with this change brought, now it's taken years for them to start sorting out the Jordan's principle. But ultimately, when a child now from Indigenous culture comes and they seek assistance, they're automatically given it, right? Whatever government, whether it's a provincial or federal government that they approach, they're automatically approved. And then the care costs get sorted out as into what government is going to pay for the care of that child. So it set a precedent in Canada, as in every child getting supports and services that are needed. I'm not sure if that answers the question. If you want me to go a little further.
No, it does. I was more importantly, you kind of speak to that case in itself, and I kind of threw this question in there because, so we live in a reality world, right? And culture plays a very important part into our discussion here when it comes to raising our young boys. Some of us reference to, how do we transition them from, boyhood to manhood so they can impact the world. So that was well said. Thank you. And, we should always keep advocating, whether it's on the local level, provincial level, because we can make a change. We know that, our kids can make a change. But once we, and I know, I think was Rich Mullins said, or Rich and Willy said that, their fathers were their heroes, were their models, their role models. So we are, leaders in the community, whatever we do, we're all here as a similar grounds. We can advocate, and that's what we're here to do. So thank you. That was well said. Thank you very much. I just want to hear Rich Mullins on this topic in terms of, what role culture plays in terms of guiding our young boys to man so they can impact society. Rich?
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. For me, I grew up in Africa. Most of my young childhood life was in Zimbabwe, and very, very different cultures. I ended up coming from a poor background, so in the cultural environment in the school world, we were the poor kids, and the rich kids used to make fun of us. But if we take culture to a much bigger and a much wider perspective, just thinking about how different cultures and how the inequalities that there are between different cultures. I believe that culture in itself is the moral fabric of society. And as humanity becomes more and more globally connected, that fabric and that moral code becomes intertwined and patched up and reworked. And sometimes that's to the detriment of marginalized people. But I believe that there's a new level. There's a new level of elevated consciousness that embraces and values our differences. And I think this is key. This is key because those values and differences, they are what make us unique and special. And if we're going to have a thriving community, a thriving global community with these young boys, especially growing up in a global society in this digital decade where we are more connected than ever before, and the peer pressure to stand out, to look good, to fit in, is immense, absolutely immense. If we're going to have that thriving community, then the current leaders, they must also become students. And what do I mean by that? I mean that our leaders of today must become students, and they need to listen to the young people. The young people have a voice today. And we look at young role models. Let's take Greta Thunberg, for example, who are stepping up, who are giving their voice. And the more young people that do step up and give their voice, I believe that they will be the speakers. They will be the spokespeople for the new culture that really emerges.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well said. And I know Vinita probably have a lot to say on this topic. So if you don't mind, Vinita, can you share when it comes to culture?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So, all of us as human beings, I think it's a human need to want connection. And I think this generation of youth, never before have we had so much technology and so much influence of social media and all of these types of influences. So, culture is such a big term. There's so many levels of culture. It starts from our family, it goes to our community, it goes to, television, video games, everything. And we're just bombarded with so much information right now. And I think that's a bit overwhelming. And as much as we are connected virtually, and I am a big proponent of technology, it is isolating. It's not the same as connecting with other human beings. And during COVID, Actually, we look at the numbers, and the rate of suicide amongst young men and youth is really gone up. Substance use has gone up. It's become really a pandemic of its own. And speaking of culture, I think there's a lot of pressure. I can speak from my ethnic cultural experience. I'm South Asian. My family is from India, and I know a lot of other cultures as well. There is a lot of pressure on men to be the breadwinner still. It has changed, and culture is dynamic and fluid, and it does change, but there's still men have higher expectations of them to be the ones to earn more money, to get that fancy job, to get the nice car, to get all of these things. And the ladies, there seems to be a little bit less expectation. Now that is changing, and I'm glad about that. But I think that it still puts men in a high pressure state. And usually the traditional jobs of being a doctor, engineer, lawyer, those kinds of things, and the assumptions that if you have those kind of jobs, then you are going to be financially fine. Then, you know, women are going to want to be with you and things like that. So it is really very extreme. And so a lot of boys don't get a chance to really develop their own wants and needs. You know, the families don't sometimes ask them, well, what do you want to do? You know, if the kid is creative, if they're artistic, if they like to paint or draw or do anything that may be a little bit feminine, it's no, you can't do that. That is wrong. You know, it has to be certain ways of doing things. So I think for a lot of guys, they really struggle with that. And then there's a lot of competition, which I think has been mentioned as well, because there's like with women, a lot of times I think it's more sisterhood. They try to help each other with things. But with men, the socialization is still to compete. It's about competition versus collaboration. So I'm hoping that I do see changes happening. So I'm not being negative about it. I do see a lot of change, but I think that we really need to work from both angles. As much as we try to uplift women to get further education and, you know, get great jobs, we need to also encourage men to be who they want to be and find their own voice, you know, and listen to them, because we don't always listen to young boys. And they need those role models to just guide. I think it was I think it was Willy or somebody had said that support and empower. When you say empower, that doesn't mean tell them what to do. I think there's a misconception. If you're coaching someone, you say you need to do this. No, it means what do you want to do? Find your voice, and let me help to support that and guide that for you.
Correct. Well said. And like Rich Mullins said, that comes from within, right? And you're so right. The pressure, and all of us been saying the same thing. The pressure on men is society, and we know we have to be whether you're a teacher or a parent or counselor, just a leader in a community. You have to be able to adapt, because back in the days, that's how it was. Man is a breadwinner. Man was looked up on this. But now we must adapt, because we live in a changing world. So you're so right when it comes to, you know, men should be able to freely just kind of think for themselves and be who they want to be, not really so much pressure. And the pressure causes, you know, a lot of different things that we're talking about. So I'd like to hear Willy Price on this subject when it comes to culture.
All right, for me, I want to first start out by saying to Vinita, I think I'm saying her name correctly. When you talk about young men doing art and those kind of things, we also do the same thing with our young men in our program. We call it using your specialized skills. And a lot of times we don't look for our young men to have a specialized skill. And as a result of that, like you said, they're pushing them to go to college, go into computers, all these kind of things where a young man, like I said, because of that lower level where they fall behind in reading and writing, may not feel comfortable going into, they run to the streets or they fall into the streets. So in the US, I deal with a lot of young men and in a lot of the schools where culture, especially for Black culture, is a problem, because when you hear about Black history, our young people don't get excited about Black history. Because when you hear about Black history, February comes and it's the shortest month, what they make a joke about. And then they start out with what? Slavery. And then they finish up with the civil rights movement. And now, well, you know, the last couple of years, Barack Obama. So basically, when these young people hear about Black history, they don't get excited anymore, because what do they hear about? They're talking about the same people that they talked about when I was in school. Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman, and now Barack Obama. But for the most part, where are all those people? If you're saying these are our heroes and these are the things that you should emulate, where are the heroes that you're talking about? They're all dead, other than Barack Obama. So what happens is our young people don't get encouraged by hearing about our culture, because all we hear is that we're slaves and we're dead. So what we do is we work with a lot of our young people, and I've written a book called This Week in Black History, 365 Days of Black History, from kings to presidents, talking about how we came from kings, not from slaves, but we were kings, and then we became presidents of our countries, Nelson Mandela, Barack Obama. So showing young people, giving them some self-esteem to say, no, you weren't a slave. Your culture isn't based on slavery. Your culture is based on kings that were enslaved and still moved on to become presidents of those countries that enslaved them. And when you start to give them reasons, and in the book, my book that I do, Black History, it shows them people who are doing things all the way up to 2013. That was the last I wrote. And so it shows them people who are doing things in art, dance, music, sports, scientists, all these type of things. And then we get with the young people and showing them that you too can do those things. You can do anything you set your mind to. So when you see these things and you see these people and you say, okay, I want to be like him, now we do what's called the 4 W's to success. Who are you in that situation? Where are you trying to go? What is it going to take for you to get to that situation where you want to be a scientist? Or what is it going to take for you to be a doctor? What is it going to take for you to be an artist, or whatever it takes? And then why do you want to do that? And when you help them to understand their 4 W's, and especially that why helps them to maintain and stay fast on that goal. Because no matter what happens, whether they change how they accrue that goal or acquire that goal, the why is always going to be the same. Why did I want to do it in the first place? So we use culture in the schools with the young men that I work with, because that's the way we can do it, is showing them that there were people in the past that have done some of the same things that they're thinking is a first-time idea, because they don't hear about it in the schools, because the teachers don't initiate it. And so when you start to show them that they are doing something that somebody else has done or something similar, it gives them that self-pride and that desire, and they can look at that person as an example of where they want to go. So for me, I think culture plays a big role, but the schools and the teachers and the parents themselves have to know the culture and be able to teach it to their children, and not start out with slavery or start out with the negatives, but show what they came through to overcome those negatives. And based on that, gives them that self-esteem, that self-confidence to say, yes, I'm African-American, I'm Indian, I'm this. And these are, we have Africans that have done art, we have Africans that are math, and using those skills and those activities to motivate them to become successful in areas that they've never thought about being successful in before.
Can I say something quickly? I just wanted to say that I totally agree with you. When what you hear is negative first, that you were slaves, and in my country they say, oh, India is a third world country. So for marginalized people, it's always a negative story. And when you don't get to have pride and say, wow, there are all these great things. I mean, India was wealthy before colonization. There were all these wonderful things about different. It's our time to tell our stories. I think storytelling is so powerful, and I know it's powerful in the African culture. It's also Aboriginal people everywhere. It's an oral history that was taken away from us. And so it's time to reclaim those stories and for kids to have a voice to express their true feelings, because I'm seeing an epidemic of depression, anxiety, you name it. And I think it's because they're low self-esteem, because you're right. It's like all I hear is negative things. And then you hear about George Floyd, and you hear about shootings and all this injustice that's still going on, hate crimes that are still going on. And this is not the kind of news we want to hear. So I want to thank Voice of 360 Men, because honestly, we need to have more positive conversations about positive men, positive women. We need to elevate their voices, and we need to support each other with that, because otherwise we're always going to hear negative from the media. So
Negative.
thank you, Willie.
Exactly.
I think
So
what
that's the
you're
story.
doing is absolutely amazing. You're amazing.
Thank you. That's the story they share. You know, they share that story so that way it keeps you down. You know, our young people are feeling, you know, lost because what they hear? All they hear is slavery and, you know, crime and all these different negatives. So where's the encouragement to show that you can do something, that you can be, you know, better, you can provide for a family, you can be a husband, you can be, you know, you hear all this news about single parent households and things like that, but you don't hear about the full family household, you know, father and mother in the household. You don't get those stories in the news. So all the kids see is that one parent, that single parent household, a single mother with several kids. And so that's becomes that revolving door for a lot of our kids. We don't understand. They don't understand. They think that's just the way of life.
Well said. Well said. So important. And you know, I just finished read a book called The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra, and he talked about with his kids, he like just like Willie said with the why. The why is so important. He told his kids, don't worry about getting the top grades, none of that stuff. Figure out your why. Every person on this earth has a reason why they're very unique than everyone else in the world. So their purpose is to figure out their why. And in doing so, and I think Rich Mullins talk about this too, in terms of inside of you, everything comes from inside. In doing so, then everything else that people around them and leaders and parents want them to do, they are successfully doing it, and their way to find out their why. So that is so important and so powerful, Willie. Thank you. I saw a question from Facebook chat. I'm going to allow Patricia to kind of talk about this, and you know, you guys can chime in on this as well. Do you still see a huge inequity when it comes to Indigenous men and boys in Canada, even compared to other men and services? So Patricia, if you can really speak to that, and some of us, we can chime in on that as well.
Yeah, I'm going to say, based on the information that I've been given in the expert council that I have had a privilege to share in roundtable discussions with, I'm going to say yes. It is, I want to say there is over 52% of our children 14 and under who are in foster care are of Indigenous culture. So to me, you know, that's a huge number. It represents that there's still so much that has to be done, right? Much like the Black community, right? In that awareness and collaboration and bringing conversations to the table without getting defensive, right? Without getting defensive and thinking it's about us, right? It's not about us. It's about what they're going through. And I think, yeah, I absolutely think for suicide, for mental health supports, in getting connected in that, yes, Indigenous boys are definitely having a lack of resources. And it's not that it's not changing. It is, people are all coming together. And I think that this forum also brings another awareness and another opportunity for people to just come together and have those conversations and pool resources together.
Correct. Well said. And you know, that is so important. And this is the reason why, you know, marginalized, that's why there's the term marginalized, because you're very lack of resources. So I would say well said when it comes to Indigenous, but right across all marginalized people, it's still there. But there's some kind of you know, moving in the right direction, but it is still there. And you know, based on that, and I really want to talk to Rich in this sense. And I saw the question coming from the chat. Do you think feminist movement is affecting all boys or race? Before you get into that, Rich, from my perspective, it may be a reality, but we all know that the reality is what you think of it. The reality is perceived through your perception. So when it comes to that, yes, women are doing amazing things, rightfully so, because they were so depressed and suppressed for a very long time because it was a quote unquote men's world. And now that they're doing so many different things, I personally don't think the feminine movement has anything to do with it. It may because of how people are looking at things. And once you attract things, once you think of things a certain way, you're attracting that. So you make it reality. So that's my perspective when it comes to that. So Rich, can you speak on that? And anyone else can chime in on that as well?
Thank you, Levi. I absolutely agree. You know, I think the way that we think and the way that we then put our own thoughts, our paradigms onto our young boys, onto our young people, and whether that's the way the media presents, you know, certain movements like the feminist movement or whatever the media presents, when they put that on young people, they will then their frame of the world will be through that lens. So it is up to us as parents, as leaders, as mentors, really to help young people particularly to ensure that their frame of the world is in check, to ensure that they're able to use their voice and make up their own mind and their own decision. I was fortunate, I was blessed to be raised in a home that respected women and respected my sister, for example, and to treat all women as I would, as my sister. So when I grew up in the dating world, and I'm blessed to be married to a beautiful woman of nearly 20 years and have these gorgeous kids, I was blessed to have those values and principles instilled about respect for women on the planet, because they really are the mothers of our earth. And when it comes to how boys are raised and how they view women and girls in particular, I think the media, whether it's social media or stereotypes, has a huge, huge part to play in shaping boys' minds and views of the world. Whether it's the way that young girls dress today, whether it's the way that they speak, or whether it's the way that they portray themselves, not just on social media, but the way they speak and the way that they express themselves. I think, we all have a responsibility, particularly as adults, to help shape the way that young people live their lives and really frame their values and establish a value system that honors women and girls. So for boys, there should be an honor, a real honor in that process. And then just thinking about how we as males in the world respond to our sisters and women in the world today. I think there is that equality. I think there is a new way of thinking, a new level of thinking that is a shared equality. I think sometimes there can be a bit of an imbalance because of the voice that's out there. And like we said, Oliver, it's about what you think about and the lens that we frame all of the language and all the attention that comes to that. If we interpret that in a certain way and we then use that language and share that with young people, they will borrow that. So we must be careful of how we frame any movement and how we interpret any movement, so that when they have a voice, when young people have a voice, that voice is clear, it's loud and clear, and it comes from a place of value, not a place of borrowing other people's opinions or opinions that might be given to them through the TV or through social media.
Got it. Well said. Exactly. Vinita, you have anything to share?
Yes. So I think it's important to understand that not all forms of feminism are the same, right? There are people who are radical feminists. There's people who are liberal feminists, or different types of feminists. So what does that really mean? Does it mean that you only advocate for women's rights and you forget about gender equality? Because they're two different things, right? So yes, I think to fight any type of injustice, whether it is racism or sexism or poverty, anything, all people need to be a part of that movement. And I have, unfortunately, sometimes I've had disagreements with some feminists who say that we don't want men to be a part of our or domestic violence, protests that we're doing, or this kind of thing. And I say that doesn't make any sense, because if you get rid of half the population and they're part of the family unit, right? So a father and a mother and kids, it's a system, it's a community. So it's very important to have men support women who have had injustice, who've gone through domestic violence, who've faced a lot of challenges being a woman. If men are supporting you, that's a good thing. Why shut them out? And I want to be very clear about that, because patriarchy harms everybody. It also frees a man from saying, I can be vulnerable, I can care, I can show I'm a compassionate person, and that doesn't make me less male for standing up for women's rights. Because a lot of men who say, oh, you're standing up for women's rights, like, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you doing that? And that doesn't make any sense. We need to actually support each other with that. And especially when we're talking about things like intergenerational violence and family violence, it is something that we have to understand that it's a power dynamic, right? So any type of oppression is power over power. So perhaps people who have historically been oppressed, maybe to feel powerful, it's okay, let's get rid of the person who is oppressing us. That is not the way to resolve. That just, more aggression breeds more aggression. So I just want to be very clear about that I say I'm a feminist, but when I say feminist, I mean gender equity. I don't mean women having more power than men. I don't believe in that. I don't believe anyone should have more power over anyone.
Well said. So you're also saying that feminism can help us as men, help the young boys and all that.
Absolutely.
Right? Yes, correct.
I like to say something. I like to talk.
Well said. Go ahead, Willie.
Okay, I want to talk. I want to kind of agree with what Rich was talking about with social media. One of the things I talk about a lot of times is that I said a lot of our boys feel lost because what's going on right now, you hear in social media a lot is women power, woman feminism, this kind of thing. And if you look at our young men, even though we don't realize how it's affecting them, it really truly is affecting them, because everything they're seeing is that the woman is starting to take over in leadership. So if you look at our young boys now, you start to see their hairstyles start to change. And what are they wearing hairstyles like? Similar to a woman. You start to see them wearing, instead of one earring, you see two earrings. You start to see some young men even saying they're a man, but they wear dresses. You start to see all these changes to emulate the things that they're seeing in social media, because those are the images that they perceive in the social media. They don't see a lot of men roles and men doing things. So as a result of that, subconsciously they're looking at these things and they can only emulate what they see. They can only emulate their surroundings. If they grew up in a single family home with a mother and three sisters, and then they see everything on television, they're saying that, this is how women dress, or this is the look and this is how you feel, then they start to emulate those things, and without even realizing that they're picking up feminine roles. So it becomes difficult for a young man who grows up trying to be a man, but not having any examples of what manhood is all about. So we have to really be careful when we have our children watching television and listening to music. We have to listen to the music that they're listening to. We have to watch the shows that they're watching and make sure that they're not being influenced in those manners.
Oh, well said. And I agree. So when it comes to the social media, right? Because men are seeing things, or everyone is seeing things on social media, and they're emulating these things. We know this is the reason why this discussion is so important, because this discussion here has been broadcast on many different social media platforms, and we should know it's going to work out in favor for us when it comes to this movement and what we're all about, and when it comes to taking boys to impact society in the world. So we here as leaders in the community, whether we're parents or church leaders or group leaders or whatever it is, or speakers here, we can use our social media platform to make sure. And I totally agree with Vinita in terms of no matter who you are, what you stand for, collectively, we need to really be on the same page moving forward. So yes, social media is so important in what, be careful what you watch and see, but we as leaders can use that to our advantage as well, right? Anyone else want to add when it comes to, the feminist part? I would like to bring over Patricia, if you want to speak on this. Sorry, I can't hear you. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I dropped off with some techie difficulties, so I popped back on, and I've missed a couple of things. So if you can just go over the question on what.
Yeah. So the question that came through the chat was, do you think that the feminist movement is affecting boys and the way they're raised?
Okay, I think so. Yes, I think every change brings some kind of effect, right? In what we're doing. Now, I'm not representing any place that I work for right now, as far as Dawn House or OPA, right? This is just my personal thoughts. And what I found is that, when young boys come through programs with their mothers, right, as young boys, and you see them raise up and they come back, right, is the lack of and not that there's a lack. We need to do more programs for those boys whose moms were supported to make them better moms, if that makes sense.
That's totally makes sense. 100%.
Yeah.
Thank you. I agree on that. Now, as we're about to come to a wrap up, I want to kind of put this question out there. And thank you, Sivam, for interacting in the chat and putting those questions in the chat. And feel free, Sivam, to interrupt if you have any important things coming from Facebook or any other platform that you think that we can discuss. But I want to kind of end off in terms of a question when it comes to what's the next practical step regarding us as community leaders and teachers and coaches and just parents in general, in order for us to make that change, for us boys to thrive, to get them to the young professional man and impact society on a collective. What would you say the next step, if you can just kind of talk about this? I want to start with Rich Mullins. If you want to kind of talk about this, what would you say the next step is?
Wow, thank you, Oliver. Thank you. Einstein said that we cannot solve a problem with the same thinking that created it. And our generation and generations before us, we've created many problems for generations today, the youth generations today, and future generations. And how are we going to solve those challenges and problems? If we look at just education, for example, today, education hasn't changed for nearly 200 years. Young people still sit in a classroom behind a desk, spending more time listening than speaking. And I think when we give young people a voice, when we become learning partners, when we become partners in their growth, in their development, in their future, when we truly listen to them and we become the student and they become the teacher, they teach us how to be a better dad, how to be a better role model, mentor, educator, parent, how to be a better friend. Then we can truly listen and understand and work together to create a better society, a better world. And we can collaborate on that. And we can help them find their inner hero. We can help them find out what their superpowers are, what their natural born gifts and talents are, so that we can lift them up and be that support and really shine a light on the hero that they truly are. Because as mentors, as leaders, as coaches, we are their heroes. We truly are. They look up to us, whether it's media, whether it's parents, whether it's educators, and they trust us. That's the thing. They trust us. So whatever we say, whatever we input into their lives, they're going to listen to and they're going to follow. The best way we can do that, the best way we can lead is in partnership with these young people. So thank you for the opportunity.
Love it. And I love what you said, show empathy in terms of, we can, instead of just ordering, directing and correcting and just, we can listen to them and show empathy and just listen. So I love that and be partnership. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I want to go to Vinita.
Thank you, Rich. I really like everything that you said. I think it's so important, like you said, to listen to the kids and their voice. But I think in our society in general, I think systemically, there is not a lot of attention paid to mindfulness and introspection. I think it's really a skill because there's so much noise, there's so much pressure on men, on women, on, different people to do certain things and to really listen to your own voice and think about what you really want. Some people don't know. If you ask a kid, what do you want to do when you grow up? I don't know. Like, what are you good at? I don't know. So sometimes they really don't know. They genuinely don't have the answer. So I think a lot of it is training them. And I really believe in meditation. I really believe in mindfulness and being able to think and introspect and finding your life purpose. I agree. Everybody has a life purpose. And whether you're a man or a woman, you have a reason for being here, and how you choose to use that gift, it's really up to you. So I think that is really important. And to try to peel out, it's really hard to do because, of course, there is so much influence of social media, but we should start with raising awareness on social media. I think that is a global platform. We've come here together today. I think the conversation needs to continue. I think there should be opportunities for youth to do volunteer work, to do internships, to do positive things, because the more you do volunteer work and you're like a big brother, you can mentor and coach another kid, you feel good about yourself, right? And at the end of the day, if you like who you are and you love who you are, you feel motivated to do more, right? Then you think, I do have a purpose. Maybe there is a reason I'm here. I'm here to help. I'm here to do something. So they need to find their purpose and they need to learn to love themselves. I think low self-esteem is a huge problem, and knowing who to reach out for help, because like I said, there is a lot of pressure for men not to disclose how they feel. And one thing I do want to mention, because I don't think it's been mentioned today so far, when we think about domestic violence, for example, that stereotype is that it only happens to women. And that is completely wrong. There are so many men in abusive relationships, and I know personally a lot of men who have gone to the police, who've gone to CAS, and they have actually laughed at them. And they've said that is impossible. You let your woman hurt you. You let your wife do, like, they don't believe them. And when you don't believe when a man is telling something, like, it took a lot of courage for him to come out and share that, because it makes him feel weak and not strong and vulnerable. That is wrong to second guess someone. We need to reach out to men, because men are not historically programmed to, reach out themselves, because they've been told, no, you don't go and reach out for help. So they're using drugs, they're using alcohol, they're trying to self-medicate to kind of cope. But no, it's our job. We need to reach out to them. We're saying, okay, what's going on? Can I help you? And I believe your story. That's the most important thing. I believe you. When you're telling me you're being abused, I believe you. When you're telling me you're hurting, I believe you. I'm here for you. That is so important to me, right? And I think that when we show that support, then I think things will start to change, but we do have a long way to go.
Well said. I'm so glad you brought it up. Obviously, we didn't get time to really dive into it or even talk about it, but that is so true, and so much pressure is on men. And I don't think most, you can say probably they don't want their own voices, because like you said, so many different voices been telling them what to do now. And I love that you said meditation, because I talk about the first step. That allows you, because I'm just going to start getting to meditation myself, and it's so powerful. So the mindfulness I'm getting from you, when it comes to Vinita, when it comes to the next step, the mindfulness, and I agree, this conversation needs to continue, and it will, right? Mm-hmm. That's why we have this forum, so we can continue this conversation. And Willy Price, if you don't mind, share what you think the next practical step is regarding our community leaders, regarding yourself, to get these young boys from Boys to Men?
I want to say with what Rich and Vinita said, listening to our youth, that is key. We don't listen to especially our boys and young men. We don't listen to them, and our young ladies. We have to listen to them, because the thing is, you'll find is that, like I said, we do what's called the 4 W's to success. And that allows young people to be able to use their voice. That's why we do the public speaking with them. 4 W's to success. Understanding who you are, where you're trying to go, what is it going to take for you to get there, and then why are you willing to commit to that? And that helps the young person to understand who they are, because the key is you have to understand who you are. So how do you fit into that goal that you want to reach, or who are you in this situation that you're trying to deal with? And from there, you develop whatever skills or activities you need to do to overcome or to achieve it, or whatever it is. The 4 W's to success: who, where, what, and why. And then we have to work with the schools. Teachers have to learn how to teach the way students learn, and not try to make students learn the way that they teach. And that's the big problem. Like we said earlier, schools have been doing the same thing for 200 years. They don't teach the way students learn. So where we talk about right brain learning, where we're using music and video and audio books and things like that, public speaking, this way the young person who doesn't feel comfortable reading out loud from a book or writing out a paper can do a oral report, things like that, and show that he understands what he heard or what he listened to on that audio tape or what he watched in that video, will allow them to feel more confident in their education. And then they'll start to work on their reading, start to work on their writing, those kind of things. Finding what their specialized skills are. That's all under the understanding of who you are. What is your specialized skills? What are you good at? And taking those specialized skills and showing them how they can apply those, not only in the classroom, but into creating the opportunity. That's what we do with our youth. We do what is your specialized skill? And then we show them 3 to 5 ways how they can start a business using those specialized skills. So if they do art, okay, can you draw a picture well enough to sell that picture? Can you take pictures of that artwork and put it in a book and make a book and sell that book? Showing them different ways that they can use what they're good at to create a business and opportunities, so that way they do take self-pride in what they're doing. So listening to them, and that all comes from that whole part is just listening and understanding who that young person is. And from there, allowing them and being an assistant to them, so that way they can become successful in life and become a proud member of the community that they live in.
Wow. Yes. Well said. So you're saying the next step is the 4 W's, which is very powerful, because me, myself, 3.5 years ago.
Listening to them.
I'm sorry? Yeah.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
For me, I love what you said, because, almost 4 years ago, actually, I think next month is going to be 4 years ago, where I retired as a parent. I'm a mentor. Reason being, because now a lot of parents always want their kids to listen to them, like you're saying, but they're not listening to the kids. So now when you approach the whole concept or the perspective as a mentor now, it's not all day ordering, directing, and correcting. It's about guiding them, because they have their own voice. And you allow them to use their own voice, and exactly what you're saying, the who, what, where, when, why, and all that stuff is exactly what's going to happen. It's easier for them now to start teaching them these things, because they have their own voice. Now they're empowered. As Vinita and Patricia said, they're empowered now to really embody what they desire in life. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's so important.
And you bring in mentors too. Like you said, you're a mentor. So you bring in people once you hear these kids and talking about the things that they're interested in, things they want to do, you find people, if it's a male or female that's saying those things, you want to bring in a male mentor, a person who's doing something that kid is doing. So that way that child can see firsthand or meet a person who's doing something that they're interested in, and see if that person will be willing to become a mentor, willing to come in and speak once a week or once a month to show them their support for what they're trying to do. One of the things we talk about, we say, surround yourself with better. all of our kids right now are surrounded by their friends. So they're not learning anything from anybody, but when you surround them with people who can be mentors to them, people who can be examples to them, it allows them to become a better person, because now they have examples and people they can set goals towards being similar to or being even better than.
Correct. Well said. Patricia, now what's your next step? What would you think the next step would be or should be?
Okay, I want to say it's to become a voice of the voiceless if you're not already, right? So all of us have an opportunity to pay attention to what leaders are doing around us and how we can connect those who are seeking helps or supports, whether it comes across our news feed or we, have a conversation with somebody, and that when we're listening, we can take note and we can mark it down as who could we connect that individual with so that they can thrive. I think the other thing is I'm about books, right? So I want to recommend a book, if you haven't read it. It was a #1 international bestseller in constitutional law, and it's called 21 Things You May Not Know About the Indian Act, and it's by Bob Joseph. And I would recommend books. Like, if somebody's got a book recommendation, drop it in the comments or send me a PM, because I'm always about learning, because I feel like when we learn or we absorb and we read, then we get a different understanding. And I always say we don't know what we don't know. So reading more and connecting them. And maybe it's, bringing boys together in a joint collaboration in a book series or a video series that they talk about how were they best supported to get to where they are now. Because I think the more that they share their stories and how that their mentors and things help them on a public level, that we can do more.
Correct. Love that. This is the reason why this platform for voices, and you said it so many times, listening, right? Voices. And I love the fact that you talk about read, right? And Willy Price talk about even if you can't literally read, you can listen to the other. I love that. Audiobooks and this audio tape. So Patricia, if you don't mind, and I kind of try to write it down in terms of, can you type out in the chat that book too? Because I'm on a journey of reading a book a month. And so I would love to put that on my list, because like you said, when you educate, because books become our mentors too, right? When you educate yourself through books. So I know we've been, way past an hour, and, really want to thank everyone for joining us today. This conversation seemed like it was getting ready to start an hour and a half or almost 2 hours in. But obviously it's going to continue. So anyone here, I'm going to just kind of leave it open for a little bit in terms of final thoughts. What are your final thoughts in terms of, what we're talking about here? Just overall final thoughts. And I want to try to go to, let's go to Willy Price first, and then I'll just go one by one.
All right, I just want to say thank you to Voice of Men 360 for allowing me to be here. I think this is a great forum. I've been looking forward to it. I've been telling my friends about it, telling people that they really need to watch this and see what's going on all around the world with the young men all over the world. So I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be here. But again, we have to listen to our young men. We have to listen to our children, period. Because they have a lot to say, but they think people, especially adults, don't want to hear what they have to say. And they have so much information, so much talent. They can tell you what they want. They can tell you better than we can tell them what they want. So that's our goal. That should be our goal, is to start to listen more and act less.
Got it. Love it. Listen more and act less. This is the reason why we have 2 ears, right? And 1 mouth. Yes, we listen more than we speak. Vinita, any final thoughts?
Yeah. I'm so humbled to be on this panel today. All of you are amazing people. And you know what? We're powerful in numbers. I think if we have one voice, it's not strong enough. the more we can get, and the more people, and I'm so grateful to Voice of Men 360 for putting this on social media, because that is our greatest tool right now, is the internet, and to share this information live, and hopefully more people commenting and sharing, then it will grow. And the more people, because I know there's good people out there. I know there's people who want to make a difference. I know there's people who see the same things that we see, but maybe don't think anybody else thinks the same way. And so we need to really band together. And I'm really hoping, like I said before, that this is not over. I sometimes attend conferences, and then after the conference is over, it's over until next year. And we're preaching to the choir. But really, we need to get more people to join in the conversation in innovative ways. And it's a certain time in history now, because of technology, we can find really cool and creative ways, and especially youth have such creative technology skills that they can really be innovative with the graphics. I love Patricia's idea, but the videos, that's fantastic. Doing a book. I mean, and we're from all parts of the world. I mean, how cool is that we were able to come today, and be here and collaborate and discuss these ideas that are global. They're not just from a particular community or culture. This is everywhere. So I really feel very empowered and good about that. And the last thing I want to say, that yes, we do need to listen to people, but we also have to understand that some people have been silenced for so long, and especially marginalized individuals and people who have not had a voice historically. So they don't really know where to find the voice. So that goes back to the mindfulness again. It takes some time to develop that. But I think that actually internal strength is far more powerful than all the sociological pressures, all that stuff out there. That's noise. True, that is powerful. Society is powerful, social media is powerful, but inside, if you have confidence, if you have self-esteem, that is your most powerful tool to really just filter out all the garbage. So if I hear, oh, men should do this, or women should do this, or this should, I can tune that stuff out, and I can band with people who are like-minded and gain the support that I need, because my mind chooses not to listen to that. And so to develop that confidence within, I think Willy's program is amazing. I love the curriculum in there. There needs to be more programs like that. And there just needs to be ways for, all people to really find their own voice and their own confidence, so that they can figure out what their gift is, because otherwise they cannot articulate, oh, this is what I want to do, because they don't even know what they want to do.
Oh, that's so well said. Thank you so much. So important. And I guess there's a lot of pressure is going to be on Jerome now and Sivam and Men's of 360 to make sure this conversation continues, because we're just about to start. I'm going to go to Patricia and then Rich Mullins to kind of wrap up final words. So Patricia, final words. Your mic, I can't hear you.
I want to say that my mantra at the beginning is coming full circle here. And I want to say thank you again to Voice of Men 360 for bringing the platform, the forum of the World Day of the Boy Child. And my mantra is basically, we can disagree about everything, but we can still be kind to each other. And as we are helping boys and men discover and come into their true inner self throughout the world, is to be respectful and mindful that their views and their challenges and what they may want to do may not be in alignment with us, but to still be respectful and to still be just as supportive and connecting them to the resources that they need to make their dreams and their burning desires that of a reality. So I want to thank you so much for having me, and let's continue the conversation for sure.
Sure, let's continue the conversation. Rich, how would you like to Final thoughts.
Wow, how do you follow that? Well, I am
Right?
just super grateful. I have met some incredible, remarkable individuals today, and so grateful and honored to be part of this wonderful panel. And I know that we'll stay connected. And the conversations in our chat is about what are the next steps? What can we do? What are the actions that we can take? So I'm excited to explore the actions. I think, in summary, for me, the real message that I want to share with the world is the world needs your hero. And you can be that hero for a young person today, for a young boy. As we celebrate the World Day of the Boy Child, you can be a hero for a young boy. And all it takes for you to be that hero is to start a conversation, just like we did today. If you can start a conversation, a lot of adults are scared of just having a conversation with young boys today because they don't know how to do it. They feel awkward. Young boys today have a different mindset, a different world. But if you show that you genuinely care, you have some empathy, and you open up that conversation, who knows where it can go. I met a young lad a couple of days ago and agreed to be his mentor. We're now going for a coffee at our local garden center. And that was his invitation to me to become his mentor and really to explore what's possible for him. When I asked him the question, what does life look like for you 2, 3, 5 years from now? Do you know what you want to do after school? He said, I don't know. But what I love is that he wanted to explore that conversation and he was open to ideas. And we can be that hero for young people. And I challenge you, I implore you, I encourage you to start a conversation with a young person today so that you can be that hero. Because in 5, 10, 20 years, you will make all the difference in that young person's life. So thank you so much. This has been an incredible panel.
Love it. Start a conversation. And what you're doing, Rich, is amazing in the community. Continue. And I'm personally, and I know everyone is sending their positive energy. Just continue what you're doing because it's so amazing. And everyone else here on the panel as well. I personally want to thank you all. It's an amazing. Like I said, getting ready to start the conversation, but respectful of everyone's time. Thank everyone here who joined us from all over the world. I thank the panelists for tuning in, and my Voice of Men 360 and Jerome and the organization. Thank you so much. At this time, I want to bring it over to Sivam and Christine for kind of wrap up this session here and any final words and final thoughts.
Let me share the video from Jerome, and then we move to Christine.
Got it.
Give me 1 second. Let me know if you can hear me here.
Hi, I am Jerome Tiloxin from the Caribbean. And this year,
Can you hear?
Yes, I can hear. Yes.
Can you see the video?
Yes.
theme for World Day of the Boy Child on the 16th of May is Guiding the Boy Child, Positively Impacting the World. And there are various parts of the world, in Canada, in Africa, in India, and the Caribbean. There will be observances, online observances, and in these sessions, we will be discussing some of the problems facing the boy child. It could be illiteracy, discrimination, bullying, drug addiction, suicides. We will be examining these issues, and we will also be examining positive aspects, those boys who are exemplars, those boys who have excelled, disciplined boys. We'll also be examining issues such as morality and ethics. What does it mean to be a boy in the 21st century? What does it mean to be a boy in 2021? So many of our boys are bombarded by confusing messages from the media and from the rest of society. And on World Day of the Boy Child, we want to examine some of these issues. I wish you all the best and good success. Thank you. Hi.
Oliver, here you go. Can you hear? Yeah, unmute.
Yes, I was muted. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. So thank you, Jerome, for, I know we couldn't hear Jerome earlier. He's somewhere in the Caribbean. I could hear some sweet birds chirping in the background. So that was pretty cool. So yes, I think we tackled some of, the concerns. And obviously this is conversation, like some of our panels was saying, that not only once a year, but should be some sort of discussion, panelist, forum, continue throughout the year so we can spread this really needed awareness. Back over to you, Christine.
Thanks, everybody. Wow, well done. What gifts you are to this world. Thank you very much for your insights and sharing your thoughts and knowledge on the forum discussion, as well as being so open and excited to the impromptu questions from the audience. That really, I think, enriches any discussion to be able to include that kind of dynamic. I just went through and made some notes as you were all talking for the last hour or so, and I just think as we progress in this time in history, we have a lot of unlearning to do. Great perspectives to gain and truths to be heard and built upon in partnership, and continued conversations such as the way that we've had here today, and what you're encouraging for everyone to do going forward. Maya Angelou taught us, when we know better, we do better. And I live by that the best that I can every day. Words that come to mind as I absorb today's impactful discussion: understanding, acceptance, empowerment, progress, kindness, doing the work to deflate stereotypes, the need for healing and growth, and making sure we're able to restore and maintain our dignity. How it's critical to continue celebrating humanity, culture, equality, and lives being well lived across the globe as we're blessed to be on. Truly inspiring today, but more importantly, you've all offered real stories for everyone listening to relate to learn from, and take away practical, doable, actionable ways for people to shift their thinking, open their mindsets, connect for the future and success of our young people in this world. Shining examples today in this important dialogue of what it means to live out your purpose in service of others in this world. So to have mentors such as yourselves for children, youth, and families, your why is absolutely helping others find their way. That was a beautiful message today. Thank you all very much for coming to the table with your commitment to guiding boys and men and lifting their voices and their lives. Thank you to all of our supporting partners around the world. Desmond Tutu says, do your little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good put together that overwhelm the world. And everyone participating in this discussion is doing just that. So thank you very much. Being able to connect and celebrate our first observance of World Day of the Boy Child here in Canada with over 25 other countries around the world has been very meaningful and will certainly contribute to positive things for the world's young people and those committed to them, such as yourselves and everybody listening today. So just had wanted to wrap up things in making sure I share a few of the announcements today from the organization. We have 4 live shows weekly. Open Up, which is sharing your personal life journey. It's a live talk show and on every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Willy, the Tamil live talk show, is on Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Sundays at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for people who live outside of Canada. There's a monthly webinar, which happens on the first Saturday of every month from 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Monthly special show, The Unspoken Tears. That's the second Saturday of every month from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the focus is on domestic violence against men, bullying, male sexual abuse, and human trafficking. And we also have our panel discussion once a month in English and also in Tamil. So turning all the shows into podcast, you can listen on 6 platforms, including iPhone, Google Play, and so on. There's also a monthly men's group meeting. This is only for men, and it's the third Sunday every month from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Only men can join, and the next one actually is today, May 16th at 7 p.m. tonight, Eastern Standard Time. There are no limitations with gender, age, nationality, or ethnic groups. All walks of life can participate in any of our shows. If you want to be a guest on any of our shows or are willing to be part of our organization and help us directly or indirectly, please do so and reach out. We would love to work with individuals, professionals, experts, community, organizations, associations, corporations, government officials, and businesses, you name it, we're happy to hear from you. The phone number is 1-437-889-8329. Our email address is info@voiceofmen360.org. Website, www.voiceofmen360.org. And you can certainly find us on social media as you all did today, our Facebook group and page. Join our group so that you can see our daily activities, and please feel free to invite your friends as well. We're also on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. So please subscribe to your YouTube channel, Voice of Men 360. We want to reach out to more people and help as many as we can. And please continue your support. Thank you so much. Be well, stay safe, and we'll meet again. All set. There we go.